What's going on, everybody? The Original Mako back with some Outriders content, and there might be more Outriders stuff on the channel. There might not. If you tune into the streams, you'll know that when I stream at nights, I'm usually streaming Outriders with Bill, and I felt like this game at least deserved a review on my main channel because looter shooters, other than Call of Duty, looter shooters are by far the game genre I've spent the most time in. And this is the most recent one to come out, and I've been playing it a lot, and I felt like I needed to at least review it and possibly put some more gameplay on the channel in the future. So I think some of you guys will enjoy this. Gunfire Reborn is kind of a looter shooter, but it's roguelike, so the loot isn't permanent. In this game, the loot is permanent, or at least as long as you don't get the bug that I'll talk about down the road in the review. But that being said, hopefully you guys enjoy this video. If you do, be sure to like it. Comment, let me know if you want more Outriders stuff. If you want to see more Outriders stuff for sure, check out the link in the description, my Twitch channel. We are doing something super, super fun this Sunday. You're going to want to be there for it. I don't want to say too much. I'll say more in a Gunfire video that maybe is going up before this, maybe it's going up after this. I really don't know the schedule. I just kind of do things on a whim at this point because that's all I really have time to do. That being said, you're gonna want to try to catch the stream this Sunday and every Sunday going forward. We're gonna have a lot of fun every week, and I'm actually really excited about this idea. I think it's a good content idea. Either way, let's just hop into this review. So I'm gonna kind of go through some of the stuff that I can go through without needing like background gameplay and stuff, and then once I get through all that, then I'll toss in some background gameplay. But let us take just a look around, shall we? First thing first, there's 4 different classes that you can play in the game. Each class has its own set of skills. Each class has its own skill tree, as you can see. Although as you go from class to class, you'll see that the skill trees are pretty similar. The top tree is almost always focused on weapons, middle tree defensive, and the bottom tree is more ability, anomaly power type of stuff. So the top tree is by far and away the best tree in the game right now. The other trees kind of need to be balanced out to make it even. But that being said, the 4 classes are all unique. There are 2 that kind of stand above the others, and they added a little bit of a nerf that took them down a peg, but not nearly enough to make it optimal playing the other classes, as opposed to the Trickster and the Technomancer are just miles ahead, mainly because of the Twisted Rounds skill that they have, or Blighted Rounds on the Technomancer. Either way, I had a chance to play every character except the Pyromancer, so I have a little bit of experience with each character. The Trickster is the only one that I have all the way up to max level. But either way, you get 4 classes to choose from, so a lot of variability there with the skills and whatnot. They mostly have different play styles. Trickster, you want to be really close. Technomancer, you kind of want to be medium range. Pyromancer, I don't know. And then the Devastator, I think, is the last class. It's like a tank class. So they do have their different roles, which is nice, having 4 different classes. The game I'm going to compare it to, it looks more like The Division, but I didn't play enough of The Division to make comparisons, so I'm going to compare it to like Destiny, even though Destiny's first person and this is third person. But I feel like there's a lot of comparisons you can make between looters, shooters, even if they're not from the same POV. So Destiny has 3 classes. There's a little bit more variability with the trees in Destiny. But this game is at the very beginning of his life, and who knows what they're going to add in the expansions. So the one big point I want to make, the biggest, I'm going to go through all the good stuff, and then I'll go through the bad stuff after. The biggest high point that I have for this game as a looter shooter is that in most looter shooters, you'll get legendaries throughout the story. And then after a mission or 2 of using it, the legendary becomes pointless because you've gone up a couple levels, the enemies have gone up a couple levels, and all of a sudden, your weapon's way behind. The nice thing about Outriders is that legendary weapons, even if they're underleveled, still have a use. If you wanted to, now this gets really expensive, so it's not recommended, But for example here, as we can see, I have some legendaries just sitting here. This one's at 16.7k firepower. The weapons I'm using are around 70. It's 10 levels lower. If you can see in the top right of the weapon. 10 levels lower, 39 and 49. But if I wanted to, I could just level this thing up with titanium that you can get from dismantling other purple and legendary weapons. It would start to get very expensive, not only with the titanium, but you would eventually need these drop pod resources, which is endgame stuff. And it uses a lot. So it's not really recommended to do this. But for at least the first copy of every legendary weapon that you get on each character, there's this tier 3 mod right here. And these tier 3 mods are unique to legendaries. The only way you can get them is by finding legendaries that have them. As you can see, if we go to mod tier 3, I have a few unlocked, but there's a lot more that I have to unlock. How do you unlock them to be able to put them on a weapon? You might be asking yourself. Well, if you dismantle any weapon that has a mod that you don't have unlocked, boom, you can see all the stuff we're going to get in the bottom right here. We'll get 20 titanium, we'll get 39 close range damage shards, and we're going to unlock that tier 3 mod. So let's go ahead and do it. Dismantled. Boom. Now, if I find a purple weapon, a blue weapon, any weapon that has a mod slot on it, I can go in here, I can go here, mod, tier 3. We now have 7 tier 3 mods, and there it is. The mod that we just unlocked. Ready to go on any weapon of our choosing. So, if you get one early and it becomes useless and you're like, well, this kind of sucks, you can still get its special mod, which is really nice because you can then use that special mod on a different weapon. And it kind of feels like you're using that legendary weapon. Kind of. Either way, at least legendaries have a use, and they're not just going to sit there and you have to spend a bunch of aren't forced to spend a bunch of resources to level them up. On top of that, while we're in this little interface, we'll talk about the mod system. I think they did a really, really good job with this. Being able to min-max your builds is super fun here. You get, so everything that's purple or legendary, purple or orange, legendary, I forget what the purple, epic or legendary is probably what it is. There's 2 mod slots, and the first time you get one, it'll come with, do I have an example? Like this helmet. So it's got 2 mods here. I haven't messed with this helmet at all. And the first time you go into here, you can pick any of the mods that you have unlocked, and you can choose to put it in slot 1 or slot 2. As soon as you pick which slot you put it in, you cannot edit the other slot. So let's say I wanted to replace this twice as hot mod with, I don't know, what goes around. Boom, we place it in slot 2, we mod it, and now this top row is locked. You cannot change this top mod anymore, which means you can't just get any old armor piece and put whatever mods you want on it. You still have to grind a little bit to get the armor pieces you want that have at least one of the mods that you want on it, which makes it, you still have to grind a little bit, but it makes it less grindy than a game like Destiny. Like I said, I'm going to use this as an example, where you have to get the perfect piece of gear. It has to have the right mods on it. It has to have the right stats. But it doesn't end there with it does end there with like customizability, but there's also these 3 bonus firepower, long range damage, and status power. These 3 extra bonuses, these attributes that they're called, that you can also get on weapons, or on armor and weapons. And those play a role in how you're going to do it too, how you're going to make your build. So you might get gloves that have at least one of the perks you're looking for, but they don't have any attributes you're looking for, so you're going to try to find another pair. So once again, it makes the game grindy enough that you can get a lot of hours out of it, which is good for looter shooters, mind you. This is a good thing, in my opinion, for a looter shooter. You want to have a bit of grinding that you need to do, but it doesn't make it so grindy that you're like, just frustrated to the point where you're like, oh, this is never going to happen. Which is good. I like that. You can raise the attributes up to a certain amount. That's what these shards are for. Every time you dismantle a piece of gear that has like max health, skill, life leech, and status power. You will get shards for max health, skill, life leech, and status power. So that's how you get the shards, is by dismantling other pieces of gear. It's just a really, really good crafting system. The crafting system is great, gives legendaries a use, better than any looter shooter that I've played. And it makes doing builds really fun. There's a lot of different builds you can try, a lot of fun things you can do. Mess around with it all you want. It's really easy to, as soon as you pick a thing you want to change, like this tier 2 right here that I have, that I could change the mods for, I could mess around with any of these mods that I want and just try new things over and over again until I find something that I like. I can mess around with the attributes. There's just a lot of really cool things you can do. You can take the special part of one legendary, take that special perk, the special mod, and put it on a random purple weapon that you think it might work well with. There's a lot of variability, which means there's a lot of replayability, which is really good. So that's one of my favorite things about this game. I really enjoy it, and I think it did just an amazing job with the crafting system. Next up, I'm going to talk about the end game, because end game is pretty important. I'm in like the end game little area here. So there's, as soon as you beat the game, you go to this little camp, and there's these things called drop, or expeditions, I guess. They're drop pods. And every time you go into this menu, there's going to be 3 different expeditions you have a choice of, and eventually you'll unlock some of these extra ones that you can do by paying some drop pod resources, going in and doing those. You start at tier 3, I think, and every time you get a bronze or above on an expedition, you can go up to the next tier and up to the next tier, where enemies get harder and the loot gets better, and you have a better chance of legendaries and purple loot as well. So obviously the more you go up, the higher chance you have for better stuff, but the enemies get a lot harder. And then eventually you can get to tier 15. As you can see, I'm on 14. I need to get to one more tier, hopefully getting there tonight as of the day I'm recording this. But once you get to tier 15, you can unlock this final area called the Eye of the Storm, which I believe it costs 40,000 of these drop pod resources to attempt, and it's just like an insanely hard end game challenge. Like, your build has to be literally perfect to complete this, and I'm really excited to try it, and I think it's really good. It's not quite a raid from Destiny, because there's no this is one of the bad things I'll talk about soon, so I'll just skip it for now. But it's not quite a raid, but it is a piece of endgame content that you can work towards, and that's very difficult. And you'll get some satisfaction when you're done with it. You can say, "Oh, bam, I did this. I did it. Look at me. I'm kind of awesome," right? So having something like that makes you feel super accomplished after you beat it is really nice. So the endgame stuff is pretty good, and I like what they did. It's a good way to grind for gear. It's a good way. You get a lot of loot from it, so it's a good way to be able to try a bunch of different builds and a bunch of different things while you're in there. And as you're doing it, you collect drop pod resources, which, like I said, you can use to pay to go into some of the other drop pods, or you can go to this guy who will sell a fixed set of legendaries for drop pod resources. So you can buy certain legendaries from him that are fixed and will not change, or you can buy some purples from him that change every hour. I believe he resets every hour. So you can look through these weapons every once in a while and be like, "Oh, there's a mod I want," and then buy it and then dismantle it for the mod, or use it, or whatever you want to do with it. Then this lady has a store as well that just uses normal scrap, nothing to do with endgame, but she resets every like 20 minutes. So even more options for you to look through. And a lot of really good stuff they did for endgame. That being said, I'll start talking about some of the things that I don't like about the game so far. World tiers. So as you're playing through the story, you'll be leveling up your character, but you'll also be leveling up world tiers. And how world tier works is you start at 1, where enemy levels -2, dropped items are levels -2, loot rarity modifier 80, legendary drop 0, wearable level item level cap 0. And as you go up, all of that stuff increases and increases and increases until you get to max world tier, which is 15. And at 15, you have enemy level plus 12, dropped item level plus 12, loot rarity modifier 500%, and legendary drop modifier bonus plus 425%. And you can wear items up to 12 levels above your current level. So once you get to the end game, this is literally pointless. So, I mean, if you're doing side quests and the hunts and stuff after you've beaten the full story, then it has a point. Then it's using the world tier. But when you're doing the expeditions, it does not. World tier means nothing. This has nothing to do with expeditions. It says wearable item cap plus 12. I'm level 30. That's the max level. And I have stuff that's level 49. That's plus 19. When we go over here to this drop pod menu, it goes by your expedition tier. Not world tier, expedition tier. So your world tier means literally nothing when you're doing expeditions. So to me, that's a little bit confusing. And I think kind of there's really no reason to have both in there. I don't know. It just seems like a weird combination of two different things to have. I know it's, two different parts of the game, but if you're doing endgame content and then you want to go do some side quests or something and you're switching between world tier and expeditions, it's like, it just seems like it's a really weird way to do it. I don't understand why there's two completely different systems for the two things, but it doesn't affect the game that much, I guess. I just don't understand why they'd have world tiers if they're just going to be pointless in the end game. So that's one of the things that was a little bit frustrating, and it's kind of like just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I think I'm going to go ahead. I think that's about everything I can talk about from here. So I'm going to go ahead and toss on some background gameplay as I talk about the rest of the stuff. Okay, so next up on the list of some things that I don't particularly enjoy too much is the story in general. Now, mind you, I played through the whole story with Bill, my roommate, and we weren't rushing through it. We watched every cutscene, but we were trying to get through some of the parts as quick as we could. So we didn't pay super attention to the story, but the story just didn't grab me and make me want to be like super invested into the lore or anything. Like a game like Destiny, the story I think is pretty interesting. But this game, it wasn't like a super in-depth thing. Like I just didn't get super into it, and it was kind of just a lackluster type of thing, kind of just going on in the background as I'm getting loot and playing through this game. So the story was one thing that I wasn't super fond of, but once again, looter shooters I kind of play for endgame anyway. Like Destiny, the story's good, but like I'm playing through the story so I can get the gear to be able to do nightmare strikes and raids and stuff like that. On the topic of raids, comparing this to Destiny, that Eye of the Storm endgame that I talked about, the super difficult challenge that you have to have like a perfect build for, and I was like, it's kind of like a raid in that sense, where like you got to be coordinated, you got to be doing the right things. Well, it is a nice relief when you finish it. You feel like, hey, I really accomplished something. But the problem is there's no unique gear, no unique loot for completing it. There's not like an extra increased chance of legendaries. Like, it's literally just so you can say you've done it, just so you can feel accomplished. So the actual idea of having an endgame thing like that, like a raid, like Destiny does, is really nice. It's good. That's great. That's what a looter shooter should have. A big final thing to work towards. And I hope in future expansions they add more of those. But I hope in future expansions they add unique loot. So that way the people that do complete those have something they can show off, something they can mess around with after they beat it. They don't just beat it and then go, okay, that's it. If you beat Eye of the Storm and you got some unique gear from it, There's a chance to get a unique weapon, a unique pistol, and then a unique head, chest, legs, gloves, and boots. If there's one unique piece of gear for each slot, it gives you a reason to replay Eye of the Storm. And it gives you a reason to play after Eye of the Storm, so that way you can test out all the new gear that you got. As it currently stands, the only reason you'd play after you beat Eye of the Storm is to see if you can beat it with a different build, or if you're playing a second character. So I feel like there's just a little bit of a missed opportunity there, and hopefully it's something that they add in future expansions and updates, that they give the game some unique gear. So that was one of the other big things that I haven't been a fan of. Probably the biggest thing I'm upset about is that fact, honestly, that there's no unique gear for the final big hoorah of the game. The only other thing I want to mention in terms of don't enjoy very much is there were a lot of bugs that came out when the game first released a few weeks ago, which is normal. You expect that. The problem is that there is still currently a game-breaking bug that can prevent people from just, playing. There's a bug right now that will just wipe your inventory. You do not have anything in your inventory. It's all gone. And they said in their most recent update that they are working on the fix, and all in one day, they're going to restore all the inventories and fix the bug soon, which is good. It's good that they, obviously, I'm sure they know about it, but it's good that they're doing something to fix it, hopefully soon. But the fact that some people right now just can't play the game is still, it's kind of a problem. I feel like that should have been one of the biggest focuses right away as soon as they heard that. That crashes and connectivity issues, stuff like that, server problems, those are a big deal. But inventory wipe is kind of a really, really big deal. So once they have that fixed, then most of the bugs are going to be gone, which is nice. They can keep optimizing it, keep improving it. I'm sure they will. They've done a good job of that so far. So as soon as that's gone, then I won't have any complaints about the bugs or anything. And I think that this game, you can easily, if you're into looter shooters at all, you can easily get a solid 40 to 50 hours. Easy. I'm probably going to end up around the 100, maybe a little bit more, depending on how much I want to play other characters and how good expansions are when they happen. So I definitely think it's worth it. If you're still on the fence, if you're questioning it, if you're like, I don't know if 40 to 50 hours is enough, maybe wait for it to go on a little bit of a sale and then grab it. But it's definitely a lot of fun. The fights are pretty good. Some of the boss fights are a little bit underwhelming, but some of the other ones make up for it. The final boss in the story, you definitely have to be, if you're playing with people, coordinated. If you're playing by yourself, you got to be on top of it. So there's a lot of really good things about the game, and it's an easy 40 hours if you pick it up, without a doubt in my mind, as long as you're even remotely into looter shooters. The Legendaries are unique and exciting. They all have their own thing that they do. They all have their own design. Legendary armor is nice. The fact that you can equip multiples on exotics in Destiny is really nice. The customizability and freedom of builds, really good. Soundtrack is decent. It's okay. Voice acting is okay. The immersive experience was all right. Nothing crazy. But overall, I'd probably give this game a 7.5 out of 10 so far in my first 50 hours that I've already played. 7.5 out of 10. Very solid choice if you're into looter shooters. If you're still questioning it and on the fence, then maybe wait for it to go on sale, but definitely something I would recommend picking up. Hopefully in the future if they could add unique items to Endgame, this easily gets a 8.5 out of 10. That would bump it up 1 full point right there. But definitely a fun one to try. A lot more fun to play with friends, obviously, so that's usually a big thing. Try to convince your friends if you're going to pick it up to play it. You guys could have a lot of fun, I guarantee it. A lot of cool, unique abilities to try out, different classes, all that stuff. So, that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this review of Outriders. I've been having fun playing it. If you want to watch me play it live, check out the link in the description to my Twitch channel. And like I said, you are going to want to be there Sunday because we are going to have a lot of fun streaming on Sundays from now going forward. So, definitely check it out. But thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. If you want to see more Outriders content, specific builds, really good ways to use mods, stuff like that, just let me know in the comments, and I'll be sure to hop on that for you guys. But thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I love each and every one of your faces, and I will catch you guys in the next video.